This is Sidney Evans, your roving reporter, your roving good news reporter, in the offices of Jonathan D. Kantrowitz, a young man who's running for Congress in the 4th Congressional District. He is the Democratic challenger to Christopher Shays, who has been in office for a very long time. And we will discuss with Mr. Kantrowitz his program, what his vision is for the 4th Congressional District, for the state of Connecticut, and for the United States. I will now introduce Mr. Jonathan D. Kantrowitz.
There you go.
Okay. All right. I'm now sitting directly opposite Mr. Kantrowitz, who I mentioned a moment ago is the 4th Congressional District challenger to Christopher Shays' congressional seat. And I didn't realize that he was such a distinguished-looking man.
Peter, line 10.
Mr. Kantrowitz, you caught our attention when we read in the papers that you were going to run a campaign without money.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? What brought you to that conclusion?
Well, I think it's a tragedy in our current political system how much of politics depends on money. It's just wrong that the primary qualification for running for office these days is how much money you can raise. It's a travesty of our political system that ideas don't count, character and personality don't count, principles don't count. The only thing that counts today is money.
Well, now let's just talk about that for a moment, because I'm sitting here willing to give you as much airtime as you want and no charge. Now, there's a lot of us out there who will do that, but who never came forward before to offer you this kind of thing because, to be frank with you, money played a great part.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, with the access channeling that you have available to you, there is never a charge for going on the air. So give us enough of an impact so that we can make something solid happen for you, a person without going out to raise funds, a producer of television shows who's not asking for funds, but together we might gather enough votes to make it possible for the campaign finance reform come to fruition. How do you feel about that?
Well, frankly, I doubt if there is enough awareness of the access channels and people watching it enough to make a serious impact in a campaign. But I think that the traditional media, if they treated a candidate fairly and didn't dismiss a candidate simply because the candidate did not have money, I think there can be enough coverage in the traditional media to allow somebody to run a campaign, and that's what I intend to do. I think by and large the media in the 4th Congressional District is fairly unbiased and reasonable and willing to give a candidate a chance, and I expect to have a full opportunity to explicate my views.
Well, I'll send you a copy of this discussion that we're having here on tape, and we're going to put it on the air, and we'll have it on TCI. Down here it's Cablevision. We'll have it on Cablevision down here too, so that your competition, regardless of who it may be,
mm-hmm.
will maybe begin to recognize that we don't need the money to get the votes. If the public recognizes themselves what you're doing and how valuable that is, maybe they'll come along. Again, what's your gut feeling about the public coming along?
I think it's going to take more than one election campaign for them to buy into this, but I think over time the public will begin to understand that campaigns are more than publicity releases, PR and cute television ads, and that they should look beyond the surface that money can buy and look at the real campaign and the real candidate. And I think over time, the fact that a candidate is willing to go out there and not spend money will become a plus.
You know, you hit the nail right on the head. We're starting a new program in September. I don't know if I mentioned this to you over the phone when we were on the phone. The new program is called Today's Good News. And that's all we're going to have, is good news. We're not going to have bad news, and no killings, no murders, no police reports, except if the police report is good. For instance, somebody returning a wallet rather than stealing a wallet, that kind of thing. We've learned that to try to compete on a dollar basis with those who have all the money and have access to all the money, we can't do that. But what we can do is make everybody who doesn't have any money, or very little, or doesn't want to spend it, but has good ideas, we can make that happen by letting the public know that it's happening. Now it's you, now it's our station, now it's Mr. Cole up in the 3rd Congressional District, beginning to get people coming from all different sides. So, yes, it might take more than one election. I hope you're going to stick with it for more than one election, because you're the one that started the whole thing.
Well, as long as the Democratic Party needs me, I'll be there.
Okay. Now that brings up another point. I happened to be a lifelong Democrat until about 4 years ago, and at which time I did switch my allegiance to the independent people, recognizing that the parties were not working for the good of the people, they were working for the good of the party. And again, I felt that if I could give the people a platform to talk from, that the party might listen, or the parties might listen. So that goes right along with what you're doing. If you had an opportunity to do what's right for your constituents versus what your party would like you to do, what's your stand on that? You're on a hot seat.
That's a kind of when did you stop beating your wife question. I believe in the two-party system. I think that we have over 200 years of history in this country, and that it's worked very successfully as part of the two-party system. There's no question that the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are institutions which tend to protect themselves. But I also think both of those parties serve our nation. I think they do a fine job of that, and until I see some outrage, I'm going to stick with the party system.
Okay, that makes good sense. You might be seeing outrage, though. Slowly but surely, outrage builds. It doesn't happen overnight. The Articles of Independence on our Constitution took, what, 20 years to put together? A long time. Slavery took 100 years to eliminate. So, yes, it does take time. Okay, so you're a party man. Now, what if your party's wrong?
My party is often wrong, and I'm loyal to my party, but I'm part of loyalty is expressing dissent when you feel that's appropriate, and I've certainly been outspoken over the years whenever I think the local, state, or national party is in the wrong, or the local, state, or national politicians are in the wrong. I am not one who feels that loyalty means that you have to be subservient to a party or a candidate. I've always expressed my opinions independently, and I think that's one of the beauties of the Democratic Party, and to a lesser extent the Republican Party, that they do encompass a wide variety of views, and they're willing to listen to a wide variety of views.
That's wonderful. In fact, that's good. That's the way it really should be. That's the way politics should be. People who join the party should have the right to express their opinions, and should have the right to make changes if what they are suggesting is the right thing to do, and what you have just said is good. We'll put all this on the air for you, which I'm sure that the major networks won't. They don't have the time because of the amount of money available for other things. Anyway, how are you running your campaign without money? I mean, the nitty-gritty of it. What's your program down the line, and how can we help who don't want money from you?
I'm running my campaign pretty much as a one-man effort. I'm responding to all phone calls, letters. I'm responding to all questionnaires sent to me by people like the AARP and AFL-CIO. I'm expressing my opinions whenever I can in numerous interviews with the media. I intend to participate in every debate that's scheduled, and I am pushing for more debates. I've encouraged every one of our local media to schedule their own debates, to sponsor their own debates. I will be contacting numerous public organizations, asking them for an opportunity to debate, or if that's not possible, because I suspect that the incumbent congressman will be reluctant to schedule numerous debates, then I will appear by myself. Talking to organizations, responding to organizations, and talking to the media are all things that do not require money and that I can do on my own, and I'm looking forward to.
Well, I'm looking forward to putting this on the air for you. Now, unfortunately, it's first going to be aired in our local area, which is New Haven, Hamden, and West Haven. Then it will be aired down here from, I think, from Greenwich all the way up to Milford. And it will be on the air more than once between now and Election Day. It might be on the air 4 times between now and Election Day. However, I would like for you, and this is a request, anytime you get anything that you feel is good news in your campaign, or in any other thing that happens around, like somebody found a wallet and returned it, anything that might be good news, something that's happening in the schools, a play, an event of some kind, to let us know so that we can say that came from Mr. Kantrowitz.
Okay, well, my daughter was just admitted to medical school today. Does that count as good news?
That is good news.
We're pretty excited about it.
I guess so. That's wonderful. What medical?
Allegheny Medical School in Philadelphia.
Oh, today
and school started today. It was very late notice, and we're scrambling like crazy to get her from Florida to Philadelphia and get her settled. But it's all pretty exciting.
That's great.
Oh, it's been a lifelong dream of hers.
No kidding.
Yeah.
Wow. Let's talk about your family a little bit.
Okay.
I assume that you have a wife and some children.
Yes.
How'd that happen? I mean your wife.
Oh, okay. Actually, I had a friend in law school, a woman friend, and she became engaged, and I invited her. She was in Manhattan. I invited her back up with her fiance to spend the Labor Day weekend in Fairfield, where I have lived all my life. And I said, bring a girl for me. And she brought a friend of hers who turned out to be my wife. So I met her in my own backyard, having somebody bring her up to meet me. So that was very nice.
But you know, in the old days, the old story about Fiddler on the Roof,
Yep.
when the matchmaker brought people together, this in a way is kind of a story like that, only not that far back in time.
Very much so, yes.
Yeah, isn't that's wonderful?
Yeah.
Now, how many children do you have?
2.
2. You have a girl.
Yeah.
And?
I have a son who's a student at Brown University, currently spending a semester in Australia.
Well, you've lived in Fairfield all your life, so you know it pretty well. You know the whole area.
Yes, I do.
And what are the major problems you see in the 4th Congressional District that should be addressed?
Well, the most overriding problem is the inner cities. 4th Congressional District is one of the richest in the country, but it still has a city, an urban area in Bridgeport that is desperately poor, desperately needs more attention and resolution of a great number of problems. And to a lesser extent, the inner cities in Stamford and Norwalk have problems as well. All of these are problems that we've put off for many years because we had budget problems. We now have a surplus. There's never been a better time to solve these problems. And they're problems that sometimes people in Greenwich and Darien may feel they're isolated from and insulated from, but these are problems that are going to reach out across borders. If we don't have safe and secure inner cities, these problems do leak out into the suburbs. If we have children who are not being educated well, we're going to have a workforce that isn't competitive. And the nice incomes that these people enjoy depend on a reliable, competitive workforce. In the long run, we're going to lose if we don't solve our problems in the inner city. So I think that's the biggest problem and the overriding problem, the problem I'm going to pay most attention to. Another problem is transportation. We have the most clogged highways in the Northeast. And it's costing people money. The loss in manpower and time is enormous. The impact on the environment is unbelievable with all those cars sitting on those highways churning out fumes. So that's another problem that I think needs attention.
Well, you make good sense, no question about it. The issues that you're talking about are definitely there and need to be addressed, no question about it. Well, Mr. Kantrowitz, you hit on a couple of very, very, very important issues. Are there any others that you think you would like to tackle when you go to Congress?
I haven't thought in terms of a wide variety of issues. Obviously, there are pressing concerns about health care, minimum wage, international trade, international peacekeeping. There are a whole variety of issues that demand attention, but I don't think that I, as a candidate, or my potential constituents are really interested in hearing an entire philosophy. They want to know what the 2 or 3 biggest concerns are, and those are what I'm going to focus on mostly.
You know, surprisingly, you and I think along the same line. I often discuss with people, I'm not interested in what happened yesterday. That's gone. We can do nothing about that. Let's talk about what we can do for our people tomorrow, the next day, next week, next year, etc. And that's what you're saying. You're saying that down the road, we want to affect today what they're going to be doing tomorrow down the road. I like that. Personally, I like that. And I'm sure you'll get a great following of people who will follow that thinking. So I congratulate you on that.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Kantrowitz, we've learned about your family. We've learned something about you. And I hope you've learned something about access channeling. It is so powerful a medium that very few people recognize. If you use it properly, you can get coverage and never have to go against your word about not spending money for your campaign. We'll do it for you without money. So use this. We're here to do it, and we're happy to do it.
Great.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Kantrowitz.
It's been a pleasure.
It's my pleasure to meet you. Okay?
I had an Air Force patch, and it wasn't the 8th or the 20th, it was the 15th. But anyhow, it was great, and some of you, we had the privilege of escorting, and a number have said it too.